Hey everyone, Andrew here, bringing you another video review, and today we're going to be doing Superman Batman Finest World. Take a look at this comic cover right here. Now, Superman Batman Finest Worlds is a little bit different from all the other Superman Batman volumes up until this point, in that they're individual one-shot stories rather than an overall story arc that we've seen with the previous Superman Batman stories. So the question is this: will the individual one-shot formula work for the Superman Batman series, which really up to this point has been kind of lagging, or will they need those long story arcs for the title to be successful? Well, you're just going to have to see. The first story takes place right after the battle between Kryptonite-infused Doomsday and Superman in Smallville. And basically what happens is the Justice League is there cleaning up the mess that was caused by this fight. A few events lead to a story about the first meeting between Batman's father, Thomas Wayne, and Superman's birth father, Jor-El. See, before Jor-El sent Clark Kent, Kal-El, to Earth, he actually sent probes to various other planets to figure out which planet would be best suited for his son. One of the probes landed on Earth as Thomas Wayne and his wife, Martha Wayne, were driving. Thomas Wayne's conscience was then sent into a teleportation means, and it goes to Krypton, where he meets Jor-El. The two talk, Jor-El explains his plight, and eventually, because of Thomas Wayne and what Thomas Wayne says, which I think you should read for yourself, Jor-El decides that Earth is the best place to send his son. So, Thomas Wayne returns to Earth. Now, the funny thing about this is that Thomas Wayne keeps the probe that he finds from Krypton and reverse engineers it to save Wayne Tech. So, if it was not for Thomas Wayne, Jor-El may have never sent Superman to Earth. And if it was not for Jor-El, well, Thomas Wayne would never have the technology to be as financially successful as he is, and Batman may have never existed. So if it was not for each other's fathers, the two heroes may have never existed. The next story is kind of play off of a previous story in the Search for Kryptonite story arc. In that, if you remember during the Search for Kryptonite, Superman kind of goes loopy off one of the Kryptonite pieces, and he sees all these cartoonish versions of superheroes. Well, Mr. Mxyzptlk, you know, that stupid fifth-dimensional imp, and Batman basically send these cartoonish heroes to the real world. And they want to test to see if these cartoonish superheroes will survive in the real world. This is more of a comedy story than anything. There's a sad part in it, but it really is more of comedy, and it does have its funny moments in it. But there's not much to say about the story rather than just how the Justice League, particularly Superman and Batman, deal with these little critters. The last story arc is probably the longest story arc, and it deals with what happens when Superman and Batman powers switch, or more particularly, what happens when Batman gets Superman's power. See, in a fight with Silver Banshee, some mystical occurrence happens, and Superman loses his powers, and Batman gains them. But because of this, Batman loses his sanity. Well, if Batman was ever sane to begin with, but let's just pretend he is. And he loses his sanity, going basically crazy and nuts. It's kind of cool because the Justice League tries to stop Batman, and they utterly fail. Because you can't really stop Batman normally, and then if he has Superman's powers, pretty near impossible. And Batman, for the most part, stops almost a lot of crime throughout the world. He basically stops crime. People are scared shitless. Mostly the major crime. The question is this: seeing that Superman has no powers and Batman's going loopy, will they be able to switch the powers back and give Batman his sanity before all is too late? Well, you're just going to have to read and see. On to the good, the bad, and whether or not you should get it. Good. Well, I kind of like the formula of the three individual story arcs. I feel as though with the Superman Batman title, it's not quite as popular as it used to be, so it kind of gives writers a little bit more leniency to do more outrageous stories, or stories that don't necessarily need to reach a status quo of the previous story arc. It gives more freedom, and we get more unique stories. Particularly the father story that dealt with Jor-El and Thomas Wayne. That story was really nicely done. It was short and sweet, but it was still good. And normally a story like that may have not been done if we had that long story arc. Another good in this is that the second story was absolutely adorable. It was funny, particularly the parts with, like, you know, Two-Face having ice cream all over his face, or the cartoon Batman's parents were pushed instead of shoved, and the cartoon Black Canary said to the normal Black Canary, "Ew, you kiss Oliver Queen on the lips?" Silly stuff like that made it fun. The last story was kind of cool too, in the fact that Batman gets Superman's powers, making him pretty much unstoppable. It's kind of a cool concept and a cool idea. Bad. Well, the first bad is that the middle story really has nothing to do with anything, and it really didn't need to be done. It's more for comic relief than anything. And the third story, well, had a cool concept, didn't quite work out the way I wanted it to. It seemed a little off. It just didn't work well. I can't explain it. I'm not going to lie. Just something about it didn't seem right. It didn't quite go the way I thought it would go. Another bad in this is that the art is schizophrenic. It is just out there. It's, for example, in the first story arc, we have like 4 artists going at it. It's like Ed bends and it switches to another artist, to another artist, to another artist. And it's not like page to page. It's like panel to panel. So it's just like confusing as hell. Another bad to this is that while I do like the formula of the 3 individual stories, it just doesn't work out. It really doesn't work out. It's better to have those long story arcs so that we could actually have stories that work. These stories are so short that we don't really care about them that much. And there's only really one story that stands out, and that's the first one. The other 2 were just mediocre at best. Which brings me on to whether or not you should get them. Well, although I did enjoy the first story, and the other 2 did entertain me to a point, I recommend avoiding getting Finest World. The reason being is that it just does not deliver enough for the bang of the buck that you're getting. For the softcover, you're going to get $14.99. For the hardcover, you're going to pay $19.99. I wouldn't pay either for them, even though I did. But the fact of the matter remains is this is like a $12 book at best. It was a nice attempt at something, but it just didn't work out for the Superman-Batman story. So with that said, Superman Batman Finest World, I recommend avoiding it and just move on with your reading. With that said, this is Andrew saying, peace out for now.